years, you will see me doing nonstop YouTube videos, crazy product reviews, and just the stupidest tech tips, and really, I mean, 4:3 format because widescreen wasn't invented yet. But um, I was a video guy. For Linux Journal. And so Kyle told CBT Nuggets, you should check this guy out. They contacted me, and the rest was history. So
I remember a while back I looked up your old stuff, and it's amazing. What an archive to have, because like it
you been sleeping? I've been trying to call you for at least 2 hours. Anyway, let's get to work. Alright, the first thing you're going to need is a new Wi-Fi network. And to get one, you will need to crack one. I will call you back when you're done.
Welcome to episode 4 of the Noobs Podcast. Today we got someone real special. Cameron, who do we have on today?
We have the master himself, David Bombal.
David Bombal. David, say hi to everybody.
Hey everyone, but sorry Cameron, I'm not the master at anything.
I doubt that.
Well, I mean, if we're the noobs and you're not a master, then what's going to happen here? We're all noobs in this podcast, I guess?
Yeah, I love the name. I mean, it's funny. I was talking to some people in my team, and it's like a fantastic name. I think you chose really well, because, there's been some discussions online about who knows what they're supposed to know, and I think at the end of the day, everyone's a noob in something.
Yeah, because there are
doesn't matter what you do.
Yeah, there are quite a few people out there who are like, you can't make content on this. You can't make content on hacking. You can't do this unless you've been doing it for like 20 years, which even they haven't been doing it for 20 years. We know that, right? But we'll get into that. Actually, I want to get into that here in a second. But first, we got to kind of introduce who you are, because like people may not know you if they've been living under a rock. So David, who are you?
I'm some dodgy guy living in the UK. I'm originally from South Africa, have lived in the UK for a long time. I've been, like you're talking about 20 years, I've been in this game a long time. Depending which game you're talking about, but in IT for a long time.
Your traces are gone. Keep in mind that regularly switching Wi-Fi networks will be very important through your hacker journey. The longer you stay connected to a Wi-Fi network, the bigger the chances are for you to get arrested by the police. Note that the Wi-Fi network will kind of forget you when disconnecting from it. I have a first contract in mind for you, so go buy yourself some tools on the Backstore website. In this world, your super RGB computer will not be enough. That's why I bought you a server. Yeah, that's right, your own server. Each contract can be different, so you'll need to make some space on your computer before you do anything. For now, go transfer to your server the tools that you bought during our previous call. Now that you are geared up, it's time to honor your first contract. I just sent you on Discord the IP address of the network that you are going to hack, followed by the name of the file that you need to steal for me. When you're done, just send me the file on Discord.
I got my Cisco CCIE, which is like a good qualification, in 2003. So yeah, I'm what a lot of people call grandpa on YouTube these days. So like been around the block a few times, seen a lot of technologies change, and again, really like the name because I remember being the grandpa learning NT4, so Windows NT4, and just as I got to know it, it changed. And I think that's, Chuck, we can talk about that. Something about technology. It doesn't matter how long you've been doing this, you just got to keep on learning every day, because as soon as you sort of feel you kind of know something, it just changes and you've got to learn everything again. So yeah, I have a YouTube channel. Chuck, you and I have been going back, or how do you say, we've spoken, I don't know when we spoke first. It was quite a long time ago.
I remember.
Years ago. Go on.
It was back when we back when we first started talking, you had more subscribers than me. That's changed a little bit.
Yeah, just a bit. Congratulations, man. Congrats.
No, and to you as well. But like back then, I was just getting started. I had no idea what I was doing. I'm pretty sure we both had no idea what we were doing. And I think I had like maybe 5, 10, or maybe 10,000 subscribers. And I got a message from you talking. No. I know how we met.
You started it. You did great.
I started. So I was making CCNA content on YouTube, not like teaching it, but just talking about like, okay, this is the certification you got to get. And I would always recommend your training on Udemy as the course. And then you just reached out to me. I'm like, oh, hey, who's this David guy? And at the time, I think you wanted me to start making courses with you, but I had already signed a deal with CBT Nordic to start working with them. And we couldn't play together at that point.
Yeah, I remember specifically, it was the iOS, how did I say, like, configure iOS like a boss or something like that was a course that I made, and you'd recommended it on a video, and then I'd seen you start to grow. So I was I was starting to do more and more on YouTube in those days, and I was watching who else is in this space, and I saw you growing a lot, and you created something, and then we started talking. We've done quite a few things over the years, but we seem to we do something and then we do something else, but such is life.
And that's kind of the game of YouTube, It's like you have to change rapidly all the time. It's like you and I, man, we've been making networking content for a while, but then we kind of pivoted just because we found interest in something else, and we saw the industry changing. I mean, you've changed. People give us flack for switching to these areas, but you've had to change rapidly over time, like switching from like typical networking to voice. And I love what you say. It's all about riding those waves.
Yeah, I mean, it's exactly right. I mean, depends how old you want to, hear the old war stories. But I remember talking about Cisco certs. I did CCNP years and years ago. I did Cisco Security Professional years and years ago. I remember teaching, Cisco IDS and Cisco products, security products a long, long time ago. But yeah, I just think you need to ride the waves and see what gives you the most return on your, your time, because we all have limited time. I've said this 1,000 times. So at that time, I did traditional routing and switching, but in those days, voice over IP was becoming this big thing. And I rode that way for a long time. But anyone who tells you that you need to stay in your lane hasn't been doing this long enough, because, in my opinion, because if you stay in your lane, that lane's going to disappear. I mean, if you're an old engineer and you did dial-up, I did ISDN, frame relay, all those technologies, but they all dead now. So if you just stayed in those technologies, you would die. I mean, Chuck, I want to use this as a motivation for you and everyone else who's starting out who feels that I can't broaden my skills, or I can't jump from one thing to another. I don't think that's true at all, because just to use another old analogy, if you were a PBX guy, those are the guys that used to do the old telephone systems. They've all lost their jobs.
3/4 of our audience have no idea what that is.
Yeah, exactly. So just assume like ancient telephone systems. Cisco started voice over IP, which today it's like, David, why are you talking about this stuff? I mean, everyone uses WhatsApp or Skype, which we're using right now.
Exactly.
Skype, revolutionized stuff. Cisco revolutionized the enterprise with voice over IP. So those guys who, if they had stayed in that lane, they were obliterated. Their jobs were obliterated, basically. So I remember specifically teaching voice over IP, and there was a lot of opposition from these traditional guys. But it was interesting, the guys that changed were the guys that made it. And the guys who refused to change, well, I don't know if they got jobs. That's the problem. In this game, you learn or you die type thing. So encouragement to you as well, Chuck. Ignore the people that tell you that you should stick to one thing, because if you do, that one thing is going to disappear very, very soon. So jump on everything that's new and, expand your skills. I think that's a big thing in today's world. But Cameron, you're very quiet, man. You're a lot younger than me. So what do you think? Am I talking nonsense?
No, I was about to say, like, man, that's some real motivation right there. Like, if you really needed a push to jump into something different you're not used to, I think that's it right there. The wise words of Bomble.
Yeah, like that's kind of what you're known for. Telling you, not only are you the grandpa, the father time of IT, but you also have intense motivation, like on your Twitter, on your YouTube, like, not just like video form, but you have like these pictures with the motivational poster kind of stuff. That I think I saw one guy like printed out everything you've ever done and like put it on his cubicle, which is really cool. That's helping a ton of people.
It's funny, Chuck, because I look at you and you and I have had this conversation many times. I look at you as the Casey Neistat of, IT.
That is the nicest thing you can say to me in the whole
You're
world.
making his beard grow.
Yeah, well, it's true, it's like, I don't want to stroke the ego too much, Cameron, but I remember, when I got to know Chuck in the early days, how it's that whole thing, don't feel that you have to stay in a specific path that your parents have given you or your teachers have given you or whoever. Go and do something different, do what you want to. And I mean, Chuck, you didn't. I don't want to put you on the spot, but I mean, there was a time I remember when you had like CCNA, and you and I were having these discussions. Do you go and get CCNP just to use Cisco certs, but like whatever cert it is that you're after, do you go and get CCNP? Do you go get CCIE? And I think you went a different road, and your success has just shown that. You shouldn't just follow in the footsteps of everyone else. Do what you feel is important, because if you had just got certs, you would have just been another guy with.
Congrats, you just hacked your first network. How does it feel? Now we are talking about real things, not some movie or video game fancy shit. But don't get me wrong, the network that you just hacked wasn't even secured. I almost forgot. I sent you a package down the street. Go pick it up and keep it in your apartment for me. And don't ask any questions. now ready to go on your own. I talked to a few people. They will send you a message soon to give you some work. Good luck, Hacker Man.
It's
mindset. It's it's a culture that you can apply in your life, in your in your work. And thank you again for for having me here. It's a big honor for me to stay here, talk with you and to the listeners.
Well, thanks for joining. It's an honor to have you as my first guest of the first episode, so I'm sure everyone's going to love it, and people will be able to relate to that kind of the advice you give, and so that's kind of the goal here. So thanks everyone for joining episode 1. We'll have more episodes coming up, more awesome people like Felipe. So thanks for joining us, everyone.
We hope you enjoyed this episode of the Hacker Factory podcast with Philip Wiley. If you learned something new and this podcast made you think, then share itsbmagazine.com with your friends, family, and colleagues. If you represent a company and wish to associate your brand with our conversations, sponsor one or more of our podcast channels. We hope you will come back for more stories and follow us on our journey. You can always find us at the intersection of technology, cybersecurity, and society. Welcome to the intersection of technology, cybersecurity, and society. Welcome to ITSP Magazine. You're listening to a new The Hacker Factory podcast with hacker maker Philip Wiley. You're about to discover what the role of a professional hacker entails, the different specializations it holds, and what it takes to learn and become one. Enjoy the conversation as Philip and guests unveil the secrets of professional hacking, a mysterious, intriguing, and often misunderstood occupation. Knowledge is power, now more than ever.
Hello and welcome to the Hacker Factory podcast. I'm your host, Philip Wiley. I refer to myself as the Hacker Maker because I teach ethical hacking as well as mentor aspiring hackers. And today I'm honored to have Crystal on our show. She does all sorts of cybersecurity related tasks as well as some physical pen testing. And so I think she's really going to be a great inspirational guest for you all to learn from today. Welcome to the show, Crystal. Can you tell us about yourself?
Hello. First of all, thank you so much for having me here. I feel like you could have chosen a million other people. So I am so grateful to be able to share my story and hope that I can help inspire and teach anyone trying to get into this field. So my background started, it's a very non-traditional story in my eyes anyway. I started out and am still in the military. I've been in the Army for 18 and a half years. And before I joined the InfoSec community, I did about 12 years of military intelligence work. That work consisted of targeting. So my background was, incredibly analytical, a ton of research, that kind of driven mindset of figuring out facts that aren't so easily available. I have multiple deployments, which, were some of the greatest times that I've ever spent working. I came home and decided that I wanted to focus my career stateside, and I'm a protector at nature, and I wanted to, or protector by nature, and I wanted to kind of protect my community, something a little closer. So I walked away from that career at 33 and decided to go to a brick and mortar school. I have a degree in digital forensics. I thought that was going to be, one of the ways to get into the field. This was kind of before I did any research whatsoever, and I just pulled the trigger and started running. So that's kind of how this all started. About 3 or 4 years ago, I completed my degree in 3 years. I then aligned my military career, transferring from the intel world over to incident response, and I was placed on a team that responds for the state, and that's kind of what catapulted me into what I'm doing now.
Oh, very interesting story. And this is the reason why everyone's story is important, because you've got a lot of people trying to move from the military into, the traditional world or outside of military life. And so those stories are helpful because I run across a lot of people that I mentor that are trying to figure out how they can pivot from military life into the business world. So that's a very interesting story. So kind of what, as far as, you know, your education, what type of training did you do? Is it all like based on a college degree? Did you do any kind of certification related training or any kind of industry specific training? Could you describe your education background?
Yeah, so it's funny. I don't really use much of my degree, and nor did I expect to. I found a topic that was interesting and figured, you know, if the military was going to pay for me to go to school, I might as well learn, you know, a new skill. And before, I considered myself an above average user, but not anywhere near, you know, some of the people, most of the people that I come across in this field. I had no idea what I was doing. And while in school, trying to keep up with kids who'd been doing it since they were 12, I had to study kind of twice as hard and figure out, like, okay, how am I gonna teach this to myself and keep up with them? So it was definitely a challenge. I do have one certification now. I have GSEC. It was a requirement for my position in the military. It was definitely a very broad and a lot of information when I was studying. So it was a good baseline for me. I learned not necessarily how to do things, but more so the concepts behind everything. So it really helped me. After coming into the field, I definitely think that there are a ton of other ways to do it. And I just chose the route of a degree because I felt like I was so far behind everyone already. And I thought maybe formal training would kind of help me with that. As far as the military side of the house, doing intelligence and doing targeting really helped me because of, you know, that's how my mindset already was kind of coded. You know, constantly thinking, what else? How do I prove this? How do I find this? Just ripping things apart all the time. And then turning that into a passion that I did. I started reading about, you know, body language and facial expressions and interacting with people, and discovered Paul Ekman, and it just really went off from there. That's where I started kind of finding my niche and what I really, really love doing. So no, I don't know Python, and no, I have no idea how to, you know, do most of the things that I read on Twitter, but I really enjoy people. I enjoy interacting. I enjoy kind of figuring them out. And so once I had a degree, I had this passion, I had all this, you know, experience doing this in the military, I said, okay, how can I turn this into a job? So I was handed an opportunity. Basically, I just applied and said, you know, screw it, let's try. And I got accepted, and I started physical pen testing, and it was completely life-changing.
Oh, very cool. That's one of the things about the technical side of things that, you know, some technical folks or your nerdy folks just sometimes don't really understand the human element. So that's, you know, pretty tough in itself. I think that's harder for most technical people, and to have that skill. And so that's one of the nice things about the show. Anyone that's the listeners is to realize that, you know, there's stuff like physical pen testing. So if you really don't get into, you know, coding or writing exploits, that doesn't sound interesting to you. You know, some people, this is what kind of draws people to pen testing to begin with, is pen testing is kind of like spy kind of stuff. And then the kind of stuff you're doing is even more so.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, doing this, I've learned that, you know, okay, I definitely want to be more technical, and I'm focusing on that. I got a taste of kind of the dev world and an exercise that we did last year, and again this year. And I think that I'm finding my path and figuring out, okay, here's what I want to focus on now to kind of expand my horizons. But yeah, it's so exciting to me. So
that's good. And, you know, if you're passionate about what you do, it's just so much easier to put in the extra time and effort learning. And if you have to work late, it's not as big of a deal as if it's in a job doing something you don't like to do.
Yeah, people outside of this career field, I don't have very many in-person friends that do similar things. They don't understand. They're like, man, you're always at your desk, you're always working, you're always doing this. And I'm like, I'm not working. Like it's something that I love to do. I just signed up for it was so random, and I saw it and I was like, oh my God, that would be a really great skill to have. I saw there was like a deal that came across for an American Sign Language course. I was like, wow, I can sign the alphabet, but I don't know anything else. Like, so why not do this? It's interesting. It's something that, a lot of people don't know. It can absolutely help me in the future. And then it gives me another group that I'm now able to communicate. So communication to me is extremely important. If you can't relate to someone or you can't communicate to them, what's the point?
Yeah, that's good. That's pretty interesting. Yeah, most people think about other languages, verbal languages, but they forget about sign language.
Yeah.
So that's pretty interesting. Do you feel like your time in the military helped you understand the adversarial mindset more?
Oh, absolutely. I think that's what started driving this whole career change, was because I constantly thought as a red teamer, and that kind of like, excited me. Like it set my soul on fire, if that makes, it's so cheesy. It's just something that I say, like if you're not doing something that sets your soul on fire, then you're on the wrong path. So yeah, it definitely kind of changed the way I thought as I was, growing up through the military. I enlisted when I was 18. So it definitely changed kind of how I saw things.
Yeah, you've got that even to a further extent, because I know just from working in offensive security, if you're out somewhere, I've been at airports before and saw USB thumb drives laying on the ground, and you just think automatically there's something malicious on there. I'm going to plug this in as malware and they're going to get a shell to my system.
Yep.
So you just don't look at things the same way when you understand that. That's even like when I get junk mail in my mail each day, my snail mail, you really, when you kind of understand social engineering and some of the techniques that they use, it really annoys you that marketing uses those same techniques.
I completely agree. When I worked, or whenever I work in a company that has marketing and I get an email from them, 7 times out of 10, I have to go to them and say, hey, this is not a good tactic. Like, this is something that I would use on an engagement or something, it's, yeah.
Yeah, I could go on about that, because I had bought a car in 2019, and it annoys me that some of these car salespeople will give your information out to people, and so they're trying to sell you extended warranties, and they're using social engineering to do that, and it's really kind of annoying. You can't imagine how many people that don't understand that area, or the elderly, they get that stuff and they think their warranty is going to expire, and they sign up for an extended warranty that they don't need. And
and that's another reason that kind of drove me to do this. Like I said, I was focused, outside of the country, deployed to different countries, and I was protection just runs in my DNA. Like when I was younger, I wanted to be a police officer. Well, I think I wanted to be a teacher first, but that still stands true. I love teaching, but I wanted to be a police officer. Then I wanted to be in the military. Like I just, protection, I want to keep the people around me safe. And scammers like that, taking advantage of, the elderly and people who just don't know, it really makes me irrationally angry. So anything that I can do to raise awareness or to help someone that doesn't understand, that is something that I really love doing. So
that's good. And we need people like, we really need some, training security awareness for the average person, because some of the stuff people are not aware of what's going on. And if you're not working for a corporation getting the security awareness training, a lot of people are missing out on this, because that's pretty noticeable from social media. You see on Facebook, everyone posts up the little thing saying that Bill Gates is going to give them $1,000 or $1 million or whatever if they forward this, or if they put this little thing up, this privacy notice, then Facebook can't use their pictures, their information and stuff. So there's definitely a need for that.
Oh, absolutely. I kind of avoid, I mean, I'm all over Twitter, but I tend to avoid Facebook. But it's and then all the surveys that fly around, what's your favorite color and favorite animal, and what's your mom's maiden, you know what I mean? Like, it's just, it's and people don't know. I think in this day and age, they're just, scrolling. Everyone scrolls social media, just kind of take your mind off what's going on, and they see, oh, this is a really fun little survey or something. It's going to tell me what house I belong to for Harry Potter. Gryffindor, by the way. And these people just get taken advantage of. So if I can help in any sort of awareness, then I would love that.
That's good. So whenever you're getting ready to go like on a physical pen test, are you nervous when you do that? Is there anything you do to calm your nerves? Any kind of music you listen to? Anything you do to prepare?
So yes, I am nervous every single time. It never fails. I don't care how much I have prepared, how much information I have from OSINT. I am always nervous. There's a ton of OSINT kind of scraping that I do. Social media is huge. Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, LinkedIn, obviously. But I think about 95% of the time, the moment I get in, I have to find a bathroom. And it's just because I need to like breathe for a moment. Like I've gotten in, and if it's a place so I don't have, say floor plans, or they didn't really post a lot of interior pictures, I have no idea where I'm going, I have to get to the bathroom so I can just kind of collect myself and breathe for a moment. I'm probably sweating at that point. Like it's scary, but it's in an exciting way, not, actually scary. But so yeah, there's a ton of work that goes in beforehand, but the bathroom is always my first stop.
Yeah. Yes, guys, I was watching a talk at NOLACon in 2019, and there's a couple people that were red teamers, and they do a lot of physical, and they said the first thing they do, they go into the bathroom and they carry like a candy bar with them so they could kind of get a little bit of blood sugar and try to calm down and all this. So it's pretty interesting.
I always eat in my car before I go. Yeah, I get it.
Yeah, and I guess you'd have to kind of be careful with the caffeine in case, some people that might help and some people might make them more nervous.
Yeah, I think I tend to, drink coffee at home. I also kind of scout out the location the day before. I like to go at the end of the day or just before the end of the day, just so I can see the traffic exiting the building. But yeah, the day that I plan to go on site, I usually figure out, okay, what are the high traffic times? Or if I have a completely different pretext, then, wherever that fits. But yeah, I definitely have a snack with me before I go in. And I drink a ton of water. So I will either carry a bottle with me or drink a bunch in the car before I go inside. And then, it's I'm already in the bathroom. So 2 birds, 1 stone. But yeah, and I get hangry too. So yeah. I have to make sure that I plan snacks.
So as far as that type of doing the physical pen testing, are you pretty good at the artwork of making the badges and that sort of thing?
Oh God, I would love to say yes, but I've never actually had to. Like, okay. I will use a white HID card and put it in a badge holder. So most of the time they just think my badge is flipped around. Okay. So it's not, the most difficult thing. I always find badges. I don't want to say always. A lot of the times I will find badge pictures online. So if I needed to recreate a badge, then I could. A lot of times I'll go on site multiple times. The first time, I kind of start with a slow escalation of force. So the first day I go in, or I don't go in, I sit outside and I scope everything out. And the next day, depending on the site, of course, I try to go in with no additional elevated posture. So I have my clothes on, I don't have a badge, I don't, disguise myself. I just kind of see where I can walk around. If it's a smaller institution, then obviously it would be something different, but a hospital per se, I always start in civilian clothes. And then I will try to go in a different way, and then elevate a little bit. So I have scrubs, I have acquired a stethoscope. I will go sometimes the day prior and check out the thrift stores and Goodwill, because a lot of companies, people will get rid of their shirts.
Mhm.
So, at a telecommunications company, I found a shirt at a thrift.
That's a good start for a beginner. Now that you know how to steal things, you need to know how to infect computers with malwares. Go get some rest until you receive new contracts.
Store and put it on, and it 100% made a difference. So yeah, there's definitely multiple phases in the intel gathering, the kind of recon beforehand, and then the actual day of different levels of attack.
So out of all those different areas of the physical pen testing, what was probably the most difficult to learn?
The most difficult to learn, I don't know if I would say it was difficult to learn, because to me it felt kind of like a common sense thought, but it was putting it into practice that was the hardest part. So the execution of it, because people, I would always be nervous. So I calming my nerves, changing my body language, changing my appearance, and having people, be able to question me or to challenge me, and me be able to, calm and collectively, that's not a word, to be able to see this is what happens. But to smoothly respond to them, so they think like, oh, she's supposed to be here, versus, wait a minute, she's acting really weird. Why is this happening? So learning the tasks to me weren't that difficult, but the execution of them, I think, was definitely the hardest part.
Yeah, that makes sense. There'd be a lot of judgment, because someone, like a disguise, for instance, some people are just not as talented as coming up with that. So some people probably look kind of funny going in somewhere trying to go in disguise and try and look natural.
That's very true. And you have to, kind of work with what you have. So I am a 5'9" female, and I have, a half sleeve and a full sleeve. So it's, whenever I go into hospitals, a lot of the times in that first initial day, I have to look at people, okay, like, are tattoos showing? Because if not, and then I show up the next day in short sleeve scrubs, someone's gonna be like, wait a minute, she doesn't fit in. And then I also have to figure out what color scrubs they're wearing, because each hospital is different. So yeah, you kind of have to work with what you have, work with what you're most comfortable with, and then just go from there.
So I guess for your pretext too, mention of hospitals is, I guess you have to kind of learn the terminology from the different environment you go into.
That is very true. And I was pretty lucky that most people didn't ask me questions when I was like on site at hospitals. I got asked for directions a lot. So that was great. I had some security guards just ask me, in passing, like, oh, you're still here? And I'm like, oh my God, I don't even work here. Like, because they saw me 5 hours before wandering around aimlessly. So but yeah, in certain situations, in some financial institutions, it's definitely I can't just wander around aimlessly, especially once you get past a certain point. So you have to be able, once you develop your pretext, kind of the quick names, and this is where LinkedIn comes in play, figuring out the key personnel who would have sent you to this location, or who you could say, oh, Steve, something, something, something. But it has to feel natural. So yeah, now that I'm explaining everything, there's definitely a lot of prep that to me feels completely natural, and just common sense. But yeah, there's actually a lot of prep that goes into it.
Yeah, I can imagine. Because I was just, when you mentioned going into the hospital, I'm thinking, if you're going in there in a uniform, trying to play off as medical personnel, you would think you'd kind of have to understand maybe some of the terminology. I don't know. It's
Kind of. I mean, like I said, I got asked for directions a lot, but the great part about the hospital is that so many people wear scrubs that, I don't necessarily have to be a medical personnel. So there are orderlies, there are the administrative people. Sometimes they wear scrubs, but yeah, in one hospital, I almost walked into an operating room and I was terrified and turned around and ran basically very quickly. I didn't run, I walked very quickly the other way. So yeah.
Yeah, they might ask you to scrub in.
Oh God.
Hand you a scalpel, doctor.
That would have been, I would have just cried. I don't know, just frozen. I don't know what to do.
So as far as learning this kind of stuff, what do you recommend for someone that's wanting to get started in social engineering or physical pen testing?
That is, I think, probably the most difficult question that I will have to answer today, because I didn't have a path that was, I want to be a social engineer. I didn't even know what this was.
Yeah.
I figured out that I was interested in, from a targeting perspective, excuse me, from a targeting perspective, that kind of mindset was very exciting to me, and it made me feel like, wow, you're really doing something. And then once I learned what social engineering even was, I just kind of focused heavily on that. So there's no step training. I listen to a lot of podcasts. I follow a lot of amazing people on Twitter who I freak out every time one of them follows me back. Like Jenny Radcliffe commented on one of my posts today or last night, and I kind of flipped out a little bit and fangirled. And especially Snow will comment,
Cool.
So yeah, there are a ton of resources out there, but there's really no formal training that I would say, would kind of set someone up for this, which I think is really wonderful about InfoSec, because you don't need a degree and you don't need certifications. And that's just one path. That's the path that I took. Because honestly, I didn't know any better. And I thought that was going to be, how I did it. So I know people who are light years ahead of me, and they have 0 college education and 0 certifications. So I think that's kind of, another reason that I was excited to be able to talk about this, because there's no set path. You figure out, hey, this is what I want to do, and then you just kind of dive into all of the information and ask people and make friends and make contacts, and before you know it, you're about to attend a financial institution's Christmas party under the guise that you're going to bring pumpkin spice latte cookies, and you leave unscathed.
That's probably one of the things that your area of the field that most people don't even realize exists, that you're actually paid to gain unauthorized access to buildings and that sort of thing. So a lot of people don't realize that, because the pen testing role almost sounds spy-like, but when you get into the kind of stuff that you do, that's even more so.
Yeah, and I think people think that I'm way cooler than I am. They're like, oh my God, you're like a spy. Like, a lot of my friends are like, you're a wizard. I'm really not. I just kind of like bumble my way through everything, and I'm super nervous, and I'm, relatively awkward in person sometimes. But I love it. I love it so much that it's, it makes me happy. So I'm going to do whatever I need to do to keep doing it.
Well, that's great. So how much lock picking do you do in your role?
So it depends on the site. I'm also not an expert by any means, but sites with exterior gates, they will have locks. I carry lock picks with me all the time. But it's not as much as I would like, basically. I think I pick more on my off time than I would on site.
Oh, cool. Yeah, it's one area that I'm not too good in. I've done a little bit of physical and social engineering, but the lock picking thing, I really haven't done much. I don't know if you're familiar with lock picks and lipsticks from Twitter.
I am.
Mobius?
Yes. Yep. We have interacted a few times on Twitter as well, and I super fangirl out there too.
Yeah, she's in the Dallas community, and we first met through Dallas Hackers Association. And I used to have her come before the pandemic. I'd have her come to my class and teach lock picking. So that was so much fun. She really likes to teach, and then the students really enjoyed learning to pick locks. A lot of them didn't think they could do it, and it was amazing. She's a good teacher, and some of the students were amazed that they were able to pick it up.
Oh yeah, she's absolutely wonderful, and I cannot wait to be in Texas for the next time that we can do anything in person, because I would love to meet her. And it's not, I carry around obviously it's travel, but I carry around a training lock for that reason. So like I said, I'm not an expert at anything, especially not lock picking. But I have taught and showed multiple people, within a matter of minutes, how to pick, and the look on their face makes me so happy. Like, they never thought in a million years that they would understand, how a lock works, and to watch them pick and to hear that click noise, like it's so wonderful. So I could only imagine how amazing those classes are.
Yeah, it's pretty fun. I love to watch it because she's really passionate about teaching as well. So it's just really a lot of fun. Always cool to see people that like to teach,
I agree. I definitely wouldn't be here today without people helping me by any means, because like I said, I don't feel like I'm an expert at anything. I have a really great circle of friends and colleagues and mentors, and just a fantastic community that just builds me up. Even doing this, I messaged a group that I'm in, and I was like, holy crap, I just got asked to do this. I'm not worthy. I don't even know why. But yeah, it's great because our community, it's a strong community. Yes, there's some crazy parts that happen too, but I'm very lucky. I've never experienced anyone trying to tear me down or just be mean to me for no reason. It's just been people building me up, and it's so wonderful. So I'm extremely grateful for the InfoSec community and how they have kind of pulled me in and said, you're great, and we're going to show you why every day. So
that's good. I'm glad you had a good experience with it. It's pretty important to me too. Because this is my hobby. So whenever things are normal, I'm going to conferences and cybersecurity meetups and that sort of thing. So the community is great. We're lucky here in the Dallas area to have so many organizations, but going back to your story is worth hearing. And the most important thing is to get people encouraged to get in. And sometimes when you see someone like a Jason Street, April Wright, Deviant Ullum, or Dave Kennedy, some of these people that have been in the industry for a long time that are really good at what they're doing, some people are intimidated and say, I can't get there. And people need to hear the stories of other people, how they got in. And kind of my goal this show is I'll probably have people on that are just barely getting started, because sometimes it's more fresh in people's minds how they got in. When you've been in the industry 10, 15, 20 years, you kind of forget some of those little things that people that are just getting started out remember.
Yeah, that's so true. And like you said, everyone's story is different. And that was one, line of encouragement that one of my friends gave me. Like, no one's experience is going to be like yours, and your experience matters, and your experience could help someone So shake off those nerves and, just go talk. So I think it's really great, especially in today's world of all the craziness that's going on, the way that people are kind of, getting into the field and making themselves better and constantly learning. I think it's really wonderful. So,
Yeah. Well, we're getting down towards the end of the show. Are there anything you'd like to discuss or anything you'd like to share with our listeners before we close it out?
Maybe some cheesy motivational stuff. I feel like I've been saying this all day, or not all day, but all show. If you're not happy in the field that you're in, or if you're not happy with where your life is going, only you can change that. And don't let anyone tell you that you can't do something, because you absolutely can. It may take you, a few weeks, it may take you a few months, it may take you a few years, but you can do anything. And if this is your passion, be it social engineering or coding or pen testing or anything, you get to forge that path. You get to decide, how you learn and how you do things. So just keep your head down and keep pushing. Like, you got this, and I believe in you.
Great advice. Sometimes we can be our biggest barrier.
Absolutely.
So, yeah. Well, thanks for joining us. It was great having you on this episode. I'm sure everyone's going to enjoy hearing your story.
I hope so. Hopefully I helped anyone. If anyone has any questions, I would love to speak to them offline, or if they just want to shoot the shit, I'm here too. So yeah.
Good. Thanks. And we'll be sharing your Twitter handle in the show notes, so people will be able to find you.
Okay.
So thanks again.
Okay. Thank you so much.
We hope you enjoyed this episode of the Hacker Factory podcast with Philip Wiley. If you learned something new and this podcast made you think, then share itspmagazine.com with your friends, family, and colleagues. If you represent a company and wish to associate your brand with our conversations, sponsor one or more of our podcast channels. We hope you will come back for more stories and follow us on our journey. You can always find us at the intersection of technology, cybersecurity, and society. Welcome to the intersection of technology, cybersecurity, and society. Welcome to ITSP Magazine. You're listening to a new The Hacker Factory podcast with hacker maker Philip Wiley. You're about to discover what the role of a professional hacker entails, the different specializations it holds, and what it takes to learn and become one. Enjoy the conversation as Philip and guests unveil the secrets of professional hacking, a mysterious, intriguing, and often misunderstood occupation. Knowledge is power, now more than ever.
Hello, and welcome to the Hacker Factory podcast. I am your host, Philip Wiley. I refer to myself as the Hacker Maker because I teach pen testers as well as mentor aspiring pen testers. And this show is an extension of those efforts. Each episode, I have someone that works in cybersecurity, ethical hacking, pen testing, application security, physical security, all sorts of areas. And so the goal of this show is to share those stories to help people that are wanting to get interested. Some of these people, the stories may click with you more and maybe just what you need to motivate you to get started. And today, I'm very honored to have my friend and fellow Hacking is Not Crime advocate, John Jackson. John, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
I appreciate you joining us today. Could you tell our audience a little bit about yourself?
Sure. So I am a senior application security engineer, and I double over as a security researcher on my free time and the founder of Sakura Samurai.
Oh, cool. So how long have you been doing the security research?
So, not even a full year, to be honest. I think I might have started in late or mid 2020 actually, and I started accidentally.
Oh, cool. So what platforms do you bug hunt on, if you don't mind sharing?
Sure. So, mostly our group focuses on vulnerability disclosure programs, and as far as bug bounty programs go, we typically use BugCrowd, but sometimes HackerOne. I mean, we're pretty neutral when it comes to what we'll use, but our end goal is more of getting some high impact research and getting enterprises to fix bad security.
Oh, very cool. I used to be a BugCrowd ambassador, and that was I kind of got into that to try to help people get started in bug bounty, because it's a good way to get experience. So, based on your experience, do you think that's a good way for people to get experience that want to be pen testers or application security analysts?
So to be completely honest with you, so it is a little bit of a loaded question, but I would say not exactly.
Okay.
I think that capture the flags and hack the box and try hack me are better ways to start, especially when you're new, because bug bounty programs, especially if they're public, because you have to start with public programs, are pretty hardened. You might find some low hanging fruit, but it's not going to be like hacking on Try Hack Me or Hack the Box. So I think when you're learning, it's better to use more guided platforms. Try Hack Me being more guided, Hack the Box being a little less involved for the beginner per se, I would say.
Good advice. Yeah, one of the things that I know too is the bug bounties, like you said, they're not easy, because I'd been a pen tester for years and trying to do bug bounty. I'm just really in awe of anyone that can make a living solely off doing bug bounty, because it's kind of like hunting, or someone that's a hunter gatherer for food. If you can't find food, you don't eat. And the same thing with bug bounty. If you don't find bugs, you don't get paid. And so it seems like it forces you to be better at your trade. Whereas a pen tester, you go in and run the pen test. If you don't find anything, you still get paid. So it really seems like a way to force you to work harder and think of things in a different way.
There is a common theme among the best bug bounty hunters out there, and the theme is automation. They automate a lot of these scanning processes to find the low-hanging fruit before anyone else does. Today is new. I think he's one of the best BugCrowd people. He has automation workflows where he can basically nab all the subdomain takeovers before anyone else. So, if they misconfigure, if there's a dangling DNS record somewhere hanging around, he takes it over in 2 seconds before anyone else. So, yeah, when you think about it like that, it's like the experienced hunter versus someone new getting into it. They're not going to find that subdomain takeover when they're going up against him, because he's got it mapped out. It's his career. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's pretty interesting. I got to meet him at one of the BugCrowd bug bashes in San Francisco back in 2019, right before summer camp, and it was interesting talking to him. And also, we interviewed him for the Bug Bounty Summit for Gray Hat last year, and it was interesting hearing his story that that's all he does for a living is bug bounty. So that takes some real talent to be able to do that full time.
Yeah, that's super cool. So bug bounty is more where we turn if we find something that happens to be on one of those platforms. Like, we don't solely go on BugCrowd and HackerOne and start hacking. We usually start with vulnerability disclosure programs, or one of us stumbles upon something weird, because that's what happened with Keybase, actually, when we hacked Keybase.
Oh, cool. So what resource do you use? Are you a fan of disclose.io for some of your disclosure type information?
I'm a huge fan of disclose.io. I got involved pretty early in the process, and I try to help people get disclosure. It's a major theme to see a lot of instances where researchers stumble upon vulnerabilities. It seems impossible, but it actually happens all of the time, especially when you start to get in that offensive mindset. And it's awful when you don't know who to disclose to. So Casey making that program is it's phenomenal.
Yeah, could you describe what that is for our listeners? What Disclose.io is?
Sure. So it's a lot of different things. So the aspect that I'm involved in is the community portion of it, where researchers can, share their write-ups and share their work, and if they don't know who to talk to, basically, to get disclosure for vulnerabilities that they may have found, maybe they're struggling, maybe there's no security team, there's a lot of different scenarios. They can go there and look it up. But overall, the goal of it is for enterprises and different entities to kind of just pick up the idea of vulnerability disclosure programs and getting on board with encouraging researchers to disclose to them and understanding, that it shouldn't be something that will be punished. And Casey and the rest of the people that work with him do a pretty good job of, making like boiler templates for programs for these companies that want to get involved.
That's good. And it's probably a good resource for people to get information. I had someone asking me a while back, they found a bug on some website, and I just kind of referred them to disclose.io because it's a really good place to find information on how to approach those things if they don't have bug bounties and that sort of thing. Because you definitely want to be careful when you're doing this stuff. You'll get yourself in trouble because you hear the horror stories of people that, like, especially the one that I think of the most is the DJI drone, that there was the bounty for that. And they found the bugs in it, reported it, and they were like trying to sue them or something. And they followed proper procedures. So you have to really cover yourself.
There's a lot of situations like that. I had my own run-in with Talkspace. That's what started me in security research. They sent me a cease and desist letter, which was hilarious because I had basically found a business logic 0-day where I could just get online therapy for free, and just, you're talking thousands of dollars of free stuff. And they said it wasn't a vuln. They said it wasn't a vulnerability. They said they have processes in place to basically disable accounts that are abusing that. But that was not the case because I had a few friends try it out for me and go through the whole thing. And that it just wasn't the case at all. So when they said it was not a risk at all and it wasn't a vuln, I said, okay, well, I guess I'll just publish on it. And then, I did a little blog write up, and next thing you know, I had a cease and desist letter. So it was, but I didn't know anything about research at that point in time. It was interesting. But yeah, I'd like to say I was out of scope, but with business logic flaws, it's so complex, in the sense of they kind of bake that functionality in.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you kind of learned the hard way, or that had to be kind of a scary situation.
It was very frightening for me because I didn't know anything about research. I didn't have resources. I didn't really know people in this field. So I reached out to Zach Whitaker, and he from TechCrunch, and he actually wrote about the cease and desist letter. So and they backed off, but I still took the blog down because I just didn't want to get wrapped up in a legal battle with those guys.
Very interesting. And kind of speaking along the same lines and projects that Casey's a fan of, the Hacking is Not a Crime. You're an advocate for Hacking is Not a Crime. Could you explain to our listeners what that is and what you do as an advocate?
Sure. So yeah, overall, hacking is not a crime. It's exactly what it sounds like. It's redefining the hacking space and helping people understand, and especially people that are non-technical, understand that when a hacker finds a vulnerability and reports it, it's not a criminal act, right? They're doing them a solid. They're basically doing them a favor. And along with that, I mean, there's a lot of different aspects that really comes with it. One is the whole argument of different hats, like black, white, and gray hats, and kind of redefining that space a little bit. And the other is calling criminal actions or associating criminal actions with hackers, right? Someone will leak a database, right? Or hack in and ransomware a company, and they say hacker did this. Hacker, ransomware whatever company and you know, says they'll release the data if they don't get the ransom. That it's problematic because there's a lot of us out there, and we're trying to change the space. We're trying to secure these organizations. Sometimes externally, when you talk bug bounty programs and vulnerability disclosure programs and CVEs even, and then other times internally, right? People that are penetration testers, people that are red teamers internally for companies. You know, this is what it takes to secure the space, basically, and it really hurts us when hackers are getting that rep just by using the word hacker. People think that it's bad, and you know, it makes it difficult for us to operate within the space, the legal spaces, you know, in the job spaces.
Yeah, and that's one of the things you run into. I'll describe to people before in the past what I do for a job as a penetration tester, and it's easy sometimes to say you're an ethical hacker, but so many times people will come up, is there such thing as an ethical hacker? It's like, well, not, it's just like people, there are good people, there are bad people. Not all people are bad. Not all people are good. So you just can't lump everyone into one basket. So that's really, really good what Hacking Is Not a Crime is doing. Get out there, get awareness that, not all hacking is bad. It's needed. If it wasn't for pen testers, hackers, and researchers, there'd be a lot more vulnerabilities out there. It would be only the bad guys doing the hacking. So it's a much needed space, and then it needs to be respected, and the value needs to be understood. Otherwise, we'd be in a lot worse place than what we are.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's complex too, even to a specific sense of the phrase ethical hacker as well, right? Because ethical hacker is such a loaded phrase. I really don't like how they coined ethical hacker as a thing. I get why they did it, right? Because obviously old school hackers that wanted to make a living out of it needed to push kind of into a new space, right? A new territory where they could secure enterprises for a living. But so they obviously had to push that kind of phrase. But ethics are not equal to what necessarily is legal or isn't legal per se. And that's where it gets really philosophical and strange in a real kind of twilight zone, right? It's like, would you say it's ethical to, expose child abusers or something like that, right? Like by hacking them, right? Someone might argue yes, but in how that corresponds to the law is, well, yeah, it's against the law to hack into someone's computer without access, right? So when you think about something like that, it gets complex, because ethics do not, calling someone an ethical hacker just doesn't coincide with the actual hacking field in general. Because I think like securing a corrupt organization, for instance, that like spies on Americans, would that be ethical? Well, in the sense of ethical hacking, it would be, because you're helping them secure the company, right? But in like the broader sense of philosophy and ethics, it's not ethical. So it's really, it just needs to be redefined. That we all kind of need to work on this together, like in the media, and we need to look at intent. It's all about intent, everything intent.
Yeah, that's a good way to explain it. Need to not even have to use the word ethical in it at all.
Do you say ethical doctor? I mean, yeah, there are ethical and unethical doctors. There are doctors that malpractice, right? But you don't necessarily say ethical doctor. You say you're going to the doctor's office, not my ethical doctor's office. It's just, it's strange to me.
Yeah. You don't want to go to the sketchy doctor, but
yeah.
So yeah, we kind of, when we got rolling into the show, kind of totally skipped over your background. Could you share your background, how you got started?
Yeah, it was random, completely random. I was going to school for philosophy. Actually, at the time, I loved philosophy, but I knew it wasn't really going to get me anywhere. Well, I mean, it could have, but I didn't really want to be a teacher, and that's honestly all you could do with a philosophy degree. And I get a random phone call from LeaderQuest in Denver, and they were just like, "Do you want to be a hacker?" And I just kind of laughed. It was because I was very non-technical. I dabbled with computers a little bit when I was 13 or 14, but I didn't program, I didn't hack, I wasn't involved in that scene early on when I was young, like a lot of hackers were. I was 23 years old, and I just said, what? No, it's something like that, or I don't know. What are you even talking about? I have no technical skills. And they said, just come on down here. We'll teach you everything, a whole boot camp program. And yeah, I went down to the school and they kind of sold me on it. It started at ITIL, ended with, when ITIL, A+, Sec+, C&D, and then certified ethical hacker. I just went through the whole suite, just started getting certs and learning hacking on my own through YouTube videos. And yeah, it kind of just sparked an entire life-changing experience.
Oh, awesome. That's really cool. Interesting how people get started. And that's one of the things that I like about the show, is just hearing people's origin stories, how they got started in the business. So how would you recommend someone starting out that wanted to, get a job as a hacker or pen tester or security researcher? What would you recommend?
My biggest recommendation would be, well, I think there's a couple of aspects to it, but one of the things I really want to stress is everyone's journey is going to be different. If you think you want to get into information security by getting a college degree, then do it. If you think you want to get into InfoSec by getting certifications through a boot camp, then do it. There's no right way. I mean, my way was certification boot camp, but I mean, honestly, I could have cut out half of those certifications. I could have just went and got a CEH and a Security Plus and probably found an entry level job in information security. But you have to try to pivot in a sense, right? I hear a lot of people give, it's not necessarily bad advice, but probably not the best advice, where they're like, you should go work at a help desk for a couple of years, kind of get the hang of it. The skills you learn at a help desk are completely different than the skills you're going to be utilizing as a security analyst, utilizing as a hacker, right? A pen tester, AppSec engineer, endpoint detection response engineer. There's so many different fields, and it's really wide. And I think that people should widen their view, right? Like if they want to be a penetration tester, don't be afraid to just dig into an information security job, anything you could really find to kind of get a start, because it's really hard to just go from nothing to pen tester. It's not impossible. I mean, you wrote the pen tester's blueprint, right? It's definitely possible if you go through the right stages, CEH and getting OSCP and getting education and really getting hands-on. Those are things you can do that help. But like for people that want to be pen testers, they should grip onto the InfoSec field and just start trying to pivot where they can. You don't have to stay there for 2 years, 3 years. You could stay for a couple months. It's that weird kind of place where recruiters want to recruit people that already have jobs.
Yeah, those are very good points, because and then if you start, depending on where you start out, you can get stuck on a help desk for a while or something like that, get discouraged. So yeah, definitely, try to get started in security, because, having security experience makes it easier to get a pen testing job than not having it. But if you can jump straight in, then more power to you. So yeah,
exactly.
Speaking of books, don't you have a book coming out?
I do. Yeah. Actually, Kim Crawley